Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
It's fantastic to be here. And wow, have we got a massive topic to cover today?
Massive doesn't even begin to describe it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been anywhere near a rugby newsfeed or a WhatsApp group or even just a pub since Thursday, your world has probably shifted a little bit. We are talking about the news that has, well, completely shaken the sport. Scott Robertson, the breakdancing, surfing, 7-time champion coach, has officially parted ways with New Zealand Rugby.
It's a headline that just feels like it belongs in a parallel universe, doesn't it? Just to set the stakes here. This isn't a coach leaving at the end of a World Cup cycle. That's normal.
That's standard.
This is happening halfway through a 4-year deal.
Exactly. We are 20 months out from the 2027 World Cup in Australia. That clock is ticking so loudly you can almost hear it.
It's a seismic shift. I really can't stress enough how unprecedented this is in the modern era for the All Blacks. Usually, even if things are rocky, you ride out the contract. To pull the ripcord now. It signals a level of, well, maybe panic or maybe ruthless pragmatism that we just haven't seen in a very long time.
Okay, so before we really get into the weeds of this, and we have a mountain of sources, stats, and some incredibly fiery fan reactions to get through, I want to tell you right now, if you want to stay on top of this story, you need to hit that subscribe button for Rugby Obsession.
Oh, absolutely.
We are going to be tracking this every step of the way, and you do not want to be the last one to know what's happening.
The next few weeks are going to be chaotic. You won't want to miss what comes next.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We need to move past the shock and unpack the why. Why now? We're going to look at the reaction from All Blacks legend Sir John Kirwan. We'll examine the stats, the trajectory as the board called it, and then dive into the absolute scrum of public opinion. The fan base is split right down the middle.
And that debate is fierce. But let's start with the announcement itself.
Right. So it started bubbling up on a Thursday morning, media reports were circling, and then by the afternoon, NZR chair David Kirk confirmed it. But this wasn't him just, hiding behind a press release.
No, and you have to give him credit for that. Kirk fronted up to the media. He stood there for, over 20 minutes?
Yeah.
He had to explain a decision that, on paper, looks just shocking.
You don't usually fire a guy who wins 74% of his games.
You really don't. And that's the tension, but let's talk about the emotional weight first. One of the earliest reactions came from Sir John Kirwan, JK.
Yeah, and if you know JK, he's the eternal optimist, right?
Yeah.
He's all about energy. But his reaction was heavy. He called the day gut-wrenching.
That phrase really stands out. And you have to remember, JK's been in that coaching hot seat. He coached the Blues, he coached Italy. He knows how lonely that position is when things go wrong.
He immediately talked about what he called the human factor. I think that's so important. In the whirlwind of who's next, and look at the stats. Yeah, we forget there's a person involved here, a family.
He did. He said, "My thoughts go out to Razor and the effort he's put in." It's a reminder that these guys pour their entire lives into this role, but, and this is where it gets really fascinating, he didn't just dwell on the sadness, he actually supported the board's process.
That was a tricky balance he struck, wasn't it? He acknowledged the pain, but then he defended David Kirk, saying he wouldn't have done this without a thorough process.
And that brings us to the quote that I think defines this entire situation. It's maybe the defining quote of New Zealand rugby culture. JK said, "No one is bigger than the all-black jersey. Not me, David Kirk, Razor, Bowden Barrett."
No one is bigger than the jersey. It gives you chills, honestly. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it is the absolute reality of that environment.
It is the gold standard. It's a ruthless environment. Look, sentimentality matters. Sure, everyone loves Razor. But at the end of the day, the legacy of that jersey overrides everything. If the board feels the jersey is being compromised, they make the hard call.
So JK is basically saying, it's sad, I feel for him, but if it's right for the team, it has to happen.
Precisely. The jersey comes first. Always.
Okay, so let's unpack the official reason.
Yeah.
Because David Kirk gave a very specific one. He didn't just say, we lost too many games. He used a specific word, trajectory.
Trajectory. It's such a corporate-sounding word, isn't it? But in this context, it is so loaded. Kirk explained that NZR did not see the trajectory that we wanted.
And he clarified that, right? He said it wasn't just about the losses, it was about falling short of excellence. That's a distinction that might be hard for fans of other teams to really grasp.
That is the key. In most other countries, a few losses are a rebuilding phase. You talk about learnings. In New Zealand, falling short of excellence is a full-blown crisis. And Kirk said there were issues that, and this is the real kicker, never really got addressed over the year.
That is a damning line. Never really got addressed. It implies they saw the same problems in Game 1 and they were still happening in Game 12.
Exactly. It suggests a stagnation, that the coaching staff just wasn't fixing the leaks in the ship.
But this is where it gets so controversial. Let's look at the numbers. Because if you just look at the raw data, Razor had a 74% winning record.
20 wins from 27 tests.
In almost any other sport for any other nation, 74% is job security. You're getting a contract extension. An NFL coach wins 74%, they build a statue of him.
You'd think so. But you have to peel back the layers of that 74%. It's not just about the volume of wins, it's about who you're beating. And more importantly, who you're losing to.
The quality of the opposition.
Right. And the glaring statistic, the one that probably kept the board awake at night, is the record against their top-tier rivals, specifically the Springboks.
The old foe, South Africa.
Razor had a 1-from-4 record against the Springboks over 2 years. 1 win, 4 games. That includes losing the Freedom Cup. For Zealand Rugby, the rivalry with South Africa is the true barometer of success.
It's the heavyweight title fight.
It is. And being 25% against your biggest rival is, well, it's a problem. It suggests that when the intensity is at its absolute peak, the All Blacks are coming up short.
And it wasn't just the Books, was it? We saw those defeats in 2025 to Argentina at home, which almost never happens, and that heavy loss to England, 33-19.
And that really close loss to France, 30-29.
Now, that France game was a classic. Camroigard versus Antoine Dupont. It was just amazing rugby.
It was incredible rugby, maybe the game of the year. But it goes back to that word trajectory. Look, you can lose a thriller to France in Paris. That happens. But when you combine that with a loss to Argentina, a tactical dismantling by England, and consistently losing to the Springboks...
You connect the dots.
You connect the dots. And the board decided that line was not pointing toward a World Cup victory in 2027.
This is such a huge moment, and I just want to pause for a second to remind you, if you're enjoying this breakdown of the All Blacks shakeup, you really need to subscribe to Rugby Obsession. We're going to have a follow-up deep dive as soon as that new coach is appointed, and you won't want to miss it.
Yeah, that news could drop at any time.
Okay, let's shift gears. We've heard from the board, we've heard from JK. Now, let's get into what you, the fans, are saying, because the comment sections online are absolutely on fire. It is a proper scrum of public opinion.
It really is, and I love it. It shows how passionate the community is, and there's no real consensus. There are two very distinct camps forming.
Let's call them Viewpoint A and Viewpoint B.
Let's do it.
So, Viewpoint A is what I'd call the structural problem argument. These are the fans saying, hey, don't blame the coach for everything. He's not a magician.
Right. I saw a comment from a user, PB, that really nailed this. They argued that a new coach isn't going to magically fix the scrum.
For anyone listening who might not be a forwards tragic, the scrum is the bedrock. If you go backward there, you lose penalties, you lose territory, you lose the game.
Exactly. And PB was specific. They said the Springboks are decimating the All Blacks at the set piece, and they named names. They said New Zealand needs 2 extra Lomax, Williams, de Groot.
The big props, the anchors.
PB is basically saying we just don't have enough of these elite power athletes in the front row. It's a personnel issue. If your engine room isn't as powerful as the South Africans, can any coach really skim their way around that?
It's a fair question. And then you have user Rugsies in this same camp. They brought up the it's not 2015 anymore argument, which I found fascinating.
What was that?
They're basically saying, wake up, New Zealand. They argued that firing a coach with a 74% win rate creates impossible pressure for the next guy. What happens when the next coach also hits 74% or less?
It's the definition of insanity, right?
Exactly. And Rugsie has made a crucial point. There are 5 or 6 other top teams now that have their houses in order. Ireland, France, South Africa. The world has caught up. The All Blacks can't just show up and win by 20 points anymore.
So that's viewpoint A. It's the players, it's the structure. The coach is just a scapegoat. But then you have viewpoint B, which is very much focused on leadership and tactics.
These fans believe the problem was Razor.
Yeah, there was an interesting comment from a user, MA, who seems to be a South African observer.
An outside perspective.
And MA said they were surprised Razor lasted this long. They noted he lacked analytical nous in his press conferences.
Analytical nous. That's a stinging criticism.
It is. It refers to that tactical sharpness. MA felt he sort of dodged questions and deferred to the players too often. Compared to someone like Razzie Erasmus, who is so precise and scientific, Razor just seemed a bit vague.
Razor's known for vibes, right? Connection, themes, breakdancing.
And when you're winning, vibes is called culture. When you're losing, vibes looks like a lack of a plan.
Yeah. And then there was user DP. This comment was heavy. They suggested there was a mutiny or just a lack of edge in the players.
A mutiny. Wow.
Well, more like a quiet one. They argued that losing is part of sport, but blaming coaches while showing no bite on the field is the real issue. They use the phrase, die for the jersey.
So a cultural softness. They feel the team lacked that killer instinct, that mongrel, as they say.
Exactly. So it's a fascinating divide. One side says we don't have the cattle. The other says we don't have the right leadership.
And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But the board can only change one of those variables. You can't fire 30 players.
So I have to ask you listening, which side of the fence are you on? Is 74% enough in the modern game? Or was David Kirk right to pull the trigger? It's a question every rugby fan is wrestling with.
Let's look forward now. Because despite how gut-wrenching it was, Sir John Kirwan pivoted pretty quickly to optimism.
He did. He went from sad day to excitement of what's happening next. That's sport, isn't it? The king is dead, long live the king.
And he issued a warning, didn't he?
He sure did. A defiant message straight to the world champions. He said, watch out the Springboks, we're coming.
You've got to love the confidence. It's almost irrational given the stats we just went through, but it's essential.
It's classic JK. But it also sets the stage. The search for a new coach begins immediately, and whoever takes that job is walking into a massive narrative. They're trying to reclaim a legacy.
And let's not forget the context. While the All Blacks are hitting the reset button, the Springboks are sitting pretty.
They really are. They just defended their rugby championship crown. They're #1 in the world. They have stability. They have the trophies.
So the narrative going forward is huge. A new All Blacks coach trying to rebuild that trajectory with the massive obstacle of a dominant, settled Springbok team standing in the way.
It changes the whole dynamic of the rivalry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Springboks are now the benchmark. The All Blacks are the chasers. That's going to be fascinating to watch.
It really is. Can the All Blacks thrive as underdogs?
Yeah, we all know what the mandate for the new coach is, even if they won't say it publicly. Fix the consistency, beat the top teams, and get that trajectory pointing towards World Cup victory.
Yeah, her pressure.
Just the weight of a nation on your shoulders.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've covered the shock exit, the reaction, the stats, and the fiery fan debate.
It's a watershed moment. The nostalgia for Razor is over. The reality of the results is all that remains.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. The big question now is, was it the system or was it the man? When the new coach comes in, if the results stay the same, we'll know it's the players. But if they start winning, we'll know the board was right.
And we will be watching every scrum to find out.
We certainly will. One last time, if you want to be part of that journey with us, please subscribe to Rugby Obsession. We'd love to have you along for the ride.
It's going to be a wild one.
Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.